Good morning. I hope that this day is going to be a day of joy in your life. When we read about the fruit of the Spirit in the book of Galatians, we understand and we can appreciate that joy is to be a part of the Christian life. It's actually pretty comforting to know that God desires for us to experience joy rather than simply to live in the harshness of persecution and trials. But, as we have all learned in recent times, nothing is as easy as it first appears. I believe that's one of Murphy's laws. At least it's one of Murphy's laws that I made up. Nothing is as easy as it first appears. And that includes the idea of being joyful. Maintaining our joy it doesn't come by just a snap of the finger. To be joyful, there are other things that we also have to decide. So, let's do this. Let's look at these list of 4 different things. First of all, we must decide to not be unhappy. That sounds pretty obvious, but I'm afraid that many of my Christian brothers and sisters have not decided that they don't want to be unhappy. They allow the news of the day to determine their state of happiness or unhappiness. They allow the circumstances of their lives to decide how much joy they will allow in on any one day. So, if you want to be joyful, the decision must first be made to not be unhappy. And then we must decide to be guided by a source bigger than the terrible things that go on around us. If someone else cuts you off in traffic, or if someone makes really bad coffee on that day, or if your dog makes you question whether he's housebroken, accepting joy has to be a bigger thought than any of those things. The circumstances around our life cannot be the determining factor of our joyfulness. It has to be coming from a higher source, and we know what that higher source is. Third, we must allow room for joy to come into our lives. If we're too busy to be joyful, or if our schedule is too crowded to think about joy, or if we're too emotionally detached to appreciate joy, we will end up at the end of the day cold and empty and unappreciative. We must allow room for joy to come in. And then finally, and this is my favorite, we must not take ourselves too seriously. I see people who think that making any kind of a mistake wrecks their whole day. They can't laugh at themselves. They can't smile when the slightest thing goes wrong. They can't look at anything that happens to be out of their order of thinking in a positive way whatsoever. They take themselves far too seriously. I see it in a lot of different places, under a lot of circumstances right now. I see it in commercials where the product is made really much more important than it ought to be. The kind of deodorant I use is probably not going to change my life. The brand of toothpaste that I buy is probably not going to change my image in the eyes of others. Now, let me insert a note here. Not using deodorant or toothpaste could indeed change my image in the eyes of others. But the particular brand that we buy of those things probably isn't going to make much difference. I see this tendency of taking ourselves too seriously. We see it all the time in entertainers and athletes. Very often they think that their opinions are of more value because they're famous. They're not. We see them hired to be spokespeople for various products or causes, when in fact they don't really have any more knowledge in those areas than the rest of us do, but because they're famous, they think that they're important, and bless their hearts, they're really not. And now, of course, this is an election year, and we see this tendency to take yourself too seriously really a lot in various politicians and in political movements. Each politician, be it male or female, believes he or she is going to save the world, and they make promises to that direction, they're not going to save the world. The only things in this world that are ultimately going to be saved are the souls of those who are in Christ, and only He can do that saving. Paul, the apostle, was writing to Christians at a very difficult time under difficult circumstances when he wrote, "Rejoice in the Lord always. And again I will say, rejoice." There's that joy again. The Apostle Paul encouraging us to have joy in our lives. So, Christian, today, I hope that you will allow joy in your life and go and make this a good day.